Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second day of Forum of Ideas of our Biennial of Knowledge, Artifacts. In this Forum of Ideas, crossover between the participants in the first edition of Artifacts, as well as artists, designers, and architects from all over Europe. We can share questions and hopefully we can also share some answers. This third panel, called Living Material, focus on how architecture and art works with organic material. Will be joined by Anika Unger and Hania Lapatash, and Diogo Rodrigues, Fernando Pimenta, and João Oliveira, both participants in Artifacts, as well from the Center of Genomic Astronomy. So I will just make a quick introduction. Presented by Anika Unger and Hania Lapatash, that actually are the duo who run this studio based in Madrid, with a research-based work relating to the practices of anthropology and archaeology, exploring material culture and cultural phenomena to reveal hidden information and layers of knowledge between the past, present, and the future. In their practice, they develop formats, lectures of cultural association, ponto, parágrafo, some of them. One of the members is also researcher at I2ADS, IDEIAS in Portuguese. Nancy Diniz is an architect and co-founder of Biomatters, a company developing biomaterials in combination with different microorganisms based in New York. Nancy is also the course leader of the Master in Biodesign at Central St. Martin's in London. And she has exhibited her work in numerous events, namely at, for example, London Design Biennale in 2021, at Museum of Art, Architecture and Technology here in Lisbon, Frame Award 2020, Frieze Academy, Royal Academy of Arts, and so on. She has held academy positions in the UK, US, China, Italy, and Portugal as well. She is author of the upcoming book, Unstable Matters, Co-Designing with Living Organisms, and has co-edited the book, Data Matter Design Strategy in Computational Design, together with Frank Melendez and Marcela Del Signore, by Routledge. Emma Conley, representing the Center of Genomic Astronomy, which is also, let's say, Royal Academy of Arts, and so on. She has held academy positions in the UK, US, China, Italy, and Portugal as well. She is author of the upcoming book, Unstable Matters, Co-Designing with Living Organisms, and has co-edited the book, Data Matter Design Strategy in Computational Design, together with Frank Melendez and Marcela Del Signore, by Routledge. Emma Conley, representing the Center of Genomic Astronomy, which is also, let's say, in an artist lead think tank that examines the biotechnologies and biodiversity of human food systems. Their mission are to map food controversies, to prototype alternative culinary future or futures, and to imagine a more just, biodiverse, and beautiful food system. The Center presents in research through public lectures, research publications, meal, and exhibitions. Since 2010, the Center has conducted research and exhibited in Europe, Asia, and North America. They collaborate with scientists, chefs, hackers, and farmers. In the next few minutes, each one of our guests will present the context of their work in 10 minutes presentation each. This will be followed then by a conversation based on a series of questions posed by our share here today, Lapatash and Unger Studio. So good morning, enjoy, and let's share ideas. Thank you.
Hi. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us. So as one of the winners of the open call of the Artifacts 21, we'd like to share our process, especially the process, because it was mostly about that. And we'd like to take you to the woods at first, because this is where the process started.
So, since ancient times, Mediterranean forests have been a habitat for human activity, providing a wide range of goods. It's an ecosystem of complex coexistence which still lies beyond our full understanding. The forest is the context of deconstruction, of ritual, of tradition, of growth, of decay, of the history, and also of the future, of course. For centuries, the chestnut was a multi-purpose tree in the Portuguese culture. The bread tree was historical, economical, and social important, unmatched by any other tree in the species in Portugal, especially in the region of Praia Interior, like in the northern and central part of Portugal. Chestnut was historically a valued tree across the whole society, providing woods for construction, roofing, furniture, design, basket, tools, and also for firework. The cultivation of chestnut is now declining. However, large stands of chestnut trees are still protected by law.
So, as we see now, our collaborators, Senor Joaquim and his wife Irene, we were working with in Famalicão da Serra, and we see her in the woods and him with a basket, because they are at least basket weavers, using, how Annika said, the sweet chestnut, which is originated in the region where we've worked. To get you a deeper insight into their work and the processing of the material, right, it all starts with the harvesting, and after the harvesting, the wood is going to be burned. So the rests of the processing, like the span, to be used for burning the fresh cut branches to make it easier to for further processing. I need to ask you now, in between, if you see a fire now. Okay, so I just go on because I guess what we see has a great delay. So if you see Joachim now burning the branches, that would be right. If not, I'm going to wait. There we have him. Okay, I need to click faster. So this is like the preparation, and we recognize during the whole process that the preparation is a gross of all the work that goes into one tiny basket, for example. We started to look at every detail, like especially like structures that grow, or how the chestnut is growing and the branches, and how beautiful each detail of this is, and also how beautiful the details in the work are. So as we said, we went all through the process from peeling, from harvesting, peeling, to splitting the wood and carving the wood. We did it all together with them. And yeah, we built up a very lovely relationship. And I guess this is one of the cores that this project was all about, for us, at least.
And like, okay, and as designers, it was like really really interesting to just see those two artisans working. They are working since 55 years. Mostly they do these baskets that are meant for agriculture, and in a sense their basket making seems to be like the most humble craft we can imagine. And mainly they do like functional objects, but at the same time these objects are so cyclical because because it's like they represent the complex relationship between the natural and the man-made, respecting like the seasonality of the harvest and the natural plant cycle of the forest resources. Because mainly they are harvesting like between January and February. So it's all in respect with nature, and it's all about this coexistence that they truly practice.
Just give us, right. Now we can see the workshop and Annika working with both of them. So they were like teachers to us, and we went through the whole process learning how to make baskets. We touched every single piece, and at least we made some baskets. Sorry, I'm a bit irritated by the delay of the presentation, sorry. So, but at a certain point, we just asked ourselves how to tribute this craft and how to, yeah, tribute also the knowledge of Senor Joachim and his wife. And that was the point when we started to, yeah, just handle the material like we are used to. Trying things out, doing like things they thought it's absolutely senseless.
And our approach was mainly like driven by the idea to create vessels, like vessels of information, like objects that are really showing the whole knowledge of Joachim and Irene about the material, about the processes, and about the whole species that they are working with. So within this design process that was almost non-verbal because we couldn't share a language, it was like we developed like something like an empathic vernacular approach, and it wasn't about like designing the magic solution. It was more about like putting all the knowledge that they have tributing in to some objects. And so the whole project was between thinking and making with them together, and it resulted in a new typology of objects, like objects with open endings that exaggerates the character of the construction and the core like of the craft in itself.
Right, so the design was really simple. I don't know, you can't see it right now. No. And we tried to figure out every detail in collaboration with Joachim, and no language, which was the which was the challenge. But it worked quite good, and we had some help from people passing, not passing by, coming by. Right, and it was all about tubes and sitting on this material, because in the first days we were stunned by the stability of these material and of the baskets themselves. So we started to sit on the baskets, and then the idea evolved to have an object to sit on a basket. And the other thing was to have it not rectangular, because all the bases of the baskets are rectangular, and so we really wanted to have something round. Right, so just give me a second until the Okay, so the main point in the design, at least, was bringing like the tube on a distance to the floor. And Joachim had some pretty interesting ideas on that. And we also had some ideas, trying to share it with him. We are coming to the final design now, which are, we call them benches, but Joachim still calls them baskets. And this is why we called the whole project the baskets, because till the end, it was all about the baskets, and for him it's still a basket. And this is the man and his wife, they are all about the baskets. Right, I hope we didn't forget something very important. But thanks a lot. I guess there are coming 2 more pictures. Thanks a lot, and we love to hand over to Nancy.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. My name is Nancy, and I'm excited to be here today sharing our work with living systems. So we are a team of 2 architects and academics, and very much at the core of our practice is this collaboration with different living systems. In this image, you can see a petri dish growing mycelium, and mycelium is, for many of you that probably know, is the roots of the mushrooms, and it's being used widely now in terms of aggregating matter and biomaterials. We, being 2 architects, we are deeply fascinated with form making and geometry and form, and we obviously take great inspiration from natural phenomena. In this case, you can see an image of a mushroom. So we, a lot of our work has to do with computational simulation of biological processes, growth and form. And we do take this workflow of digital computation in order to create our work. A big part of our work has to do with observation at different kinds of scales. So for example, in this image, you see on the left-hand side, a microscopic image of mycelium. And then on the right-hand side, you see a computational simulation of the mycelium and trying to explore different morphologies and behavior of the living system in order to inform then our work. And these are some examples of the work we do around computational simulations, understanding form, understanding behavior, understanding then how we can extrapolate different kinds of parameters and characteristics of the living systems into form making. So this is another living system, slime mold, and another example of how we start observing the system, understanding then through agent-based simulations, how can you start generating geometry in 2D, in 3D, so kind of like understanding how can we inform the forms of our objects with this, let's just say, organizations and behaviors. So the work is very much about working with living systems at a biological level. So, and the process is very much, one of the workflows is very much guided by microbiology. So there is an element of material selection, and then there is an element of manipulating the living system. And the living system goes through these different stages of sterilization, sterilizing the material, inoculating the material, growing the material, and then stabilizing the material and deciding, do we keep the living system alive or we decide to terminate its life cycle? So the material has a very crucial, it's a very crucial decision for us, and we have decided to work only around waste. So we don't take any natural extracted material. We only use upcycled waste. So we see the value of waste. Many designers are using waste nowadays. So there's a lot of focus into not using, valuable resources. So we do a lot of work, extracting domestic, industrial, upcycling, agricultural, industrial wastes from packaging, from different kinds of sources. So this idea of valuing waste as a raw material is something that really occupies a lot of in terms of our research. So we do a lot of work with, outsourcing this material, grinding this material, this idea of granularity, and it's very much also part of the process, right? And so after we select the material, after we grind the material, we want to then work with a bio-based material. So there is a lot of research into understanding the binders, all natural binders that will aggregate this matter, and then that we can then work through our work. How do we then manipulate these wastes and inoculate the waste with a microorganism? So these are some examples of the microorganisms we are working at the moment. So mycelium has been something that we've been exploring for a few years now. But recently, since the last 2 years, we've been working with algae and bacteria because we really are very interested in extracting biopigments from algae and bacteria. So there is this element, we grow these bacteria. Actually, they are here in my background. So different strains of bacteria, macro algae. And we have a big fascination on extracting the biomass of the algae so that we can then use as a bio color, bio pigment in our work. So the idea is to all use waste-based materials and natural pigments, moving away from completely toxic, elements in our work. And these are some of the bacteria pigments we've been working on. So bacteria that has these are basically soil bacteria that have these really beautiful, vivid colors, and then we can use them, inoculate these bacteria in these bio-based materials that we've been, these formulas that we've been developing, these gels, these basically pastes that we then end up in order to create our work. So a lot of work around mycelium, understanding different strains. How do we start growing the mycelium with the waste? So you can see here in this image, experimentation with the waste. Obviously, the waste goes through a process of cleaning, of sterilization, and then inoculation with the mycelium. And then the mycelium, which is like these roots of the mushroom, starts colonizing the waste, and then it becomes a biomaterial. So a very important thing that we do is 3D printing technologies. So we always work with digital fabrication as a way of making. So a lot of molds up until a few years ago, but recently in the past 3 years, we've been 3D printing the waste, and we've been growing these living systems in these 3D printed objects, let's just say. So these are some of the, for example, this is eggshells as a substrate, different kinds of waste that we extrude, we treat. On the right-hand side, we have the algae being extruded in the paste. So the algae at this moment is alive. So, different exploration about trying to keep the living system alive and not just, letting it die. So, this conversation between living matter and non-living matter is always very much kind of like the philosophical kind of discussion of the work. And here you can see the two objects that were extruded. On the left-hand side, there was this bio-based made out of different kinds of paper, out of packaging materials. And then this packaging and this object is then grown with mycelium that takes over. And then you can see here these two objects that sometimes we leave as a purely printed waste, and other times we just decide to grow the living system on top of the object, inoculate the object with the living system. And then the living system, adapts these different, textures and colors and aesthetics. So this idea of bioaesthetics is also very much at the core of the discussion and the development of the work and the successive iterations of the objects. And then I'm just an example here of an object that has been inoculated with the algae and creating, different colors, and the idea of exploring these biopigments as part of one of the series of our objects. and just leaving you with some of the objects that we've been developing now. We have now mixing different kinds of materials in the same system. So we used to have, purely based mycelium. Sometimes we have just waste, but now we have these hybrid objects that have this combination between, grown living matter and just purely inert extruded waste. So yeah, so this is more or less what I had for you. Maybe I talked too quickly, but I would like to discuss maybe and leave the discussion with the audience. Thank you very much.
Can we start? So, well, thank you for the invitation to be here. Anya and Danica already exposed very well the material that the sweet chestnut basketry is, and the technique associated to it, and the process. We can say that in Alcongosta, where we were working, there are not substantial differences. So it would be kind of a redundance to explain everything over again here. Nevertheless, I think we can at least expose that our work in Alcongosta with António Nunes and Maria de Lourdes had three main axes. First, the documentation, that we're not going to speak so much here, because Anya and Danica already exposed it very well. And the transformation, mutation, so these design experiences and the installation. So the second axis was about the situation of the basketry in Alcongosta and more or less the whole region, is that the basketry is not really, how can I say this, it's not, it can be sustained to make a living. So someone that makes baskets for a living, they don't exist. They really don't exist, because it's something that is more, it's not a compliment, but something extra to a pension, exactly. So that's the first problem we saw when we first talked to all the artisans that do chestnut wood basketry, and that's what this axis was born because of this. So we started to experiment with the material, the flexibility, and the potential that they had to become other objects than basketry. And we started experimenting some objects that could maybe have some value added into it, or by design, or just by having other functionality that is not easily replaceable by plastics. That's one of the main problems of the baskets today, because they were really intensively used on cherry picking, and now they are mainly for this purpose it's used plastics. So we experimented with these benches. So we here we have two benches that were completed. The structure was made from plywood that was cut on the Fab Lab. So we tried to have a mixture of the artisans, the old techniques, and the new ones with digital fabrication. So we have on the left a bench with the weaving pattern that is most associated with this type of artisans and this technology. And the second one was more an experimentation, and it even was suggested by us to us by the artisan Don Nunes, to experiment the flexibility of the strands of chestnut wood. And on the background you can see all the experiments of various types of joinery to the structure, but they weren't completed because the lack of resources, the lack of material to use, and also, of course, the artisans are very, very old, and there is a lot of problem on just making this type of objects on a larger scale. I don't know if you want to add something on this part.
Maybe just that this is also the second experiment, the lamps. Again, in the same logic, to try to find new forms and new products that could become more valuable, and thus make better and give more sense to the effort of production of the chestwood basketry. Therefore, giving it maybe a way of renewing itself and sustaining itself. And so this is just 3 small prototypes and a big one with the help of the workers of the municipality of Fundão. And our artisan Antonio Nunes made all the work of chestwood that you can see here. So the third axis we were talking about is the installation, the kind of the main piece of this residency. And the first problem we encountered was the lack of material, as I said before. Firstly, we thought we were going to have an installation made with chestnut wood basketry techniques, so the weaving patterns all over these panels. But we very soon discovered that it was not possible because we didn't have the material. Because the material has to be harvested on a certain period. It has it's a lengthy process that wasn't done. And so it was not possible to cover this with the weaving pattern. So we had to reinvent the material and how can I say remove from context the material. So instead of having the weaving pattern, we had a chestnut wood. I don't know how to say strands. The raw material. Yeah, the raw material. Exactly, which is part of the process, as Annika and Anya said. But creating new patterns, new uses for them that are really out of context of the real basketry of chestnut wood, and
also as an architectural approach to this kind of process, we thought about on one point the reinterpretation of the different materialities and the process in this kind of technology, but at the same point, this third axis was a kind of homage to the community, to the place, to the technique, to the artisans. So at that point we thought, okay, maybe we have to do something in the public space, and also because we are architects, it was something that was really also a necessity for us to give something and also to transform this space that this is a small sightseeing, yeah. In this place, in the lower level, there is like a small
but like public
bathroom. So it's a bit disqualified space in this area. So this kind of intervention made sense to us to do it here.
So it was a space that was not really used. It had a beautiful view over the mountain, the valley, and we wanted to try to enhance the experience and make a space that is more inviting and more comfortable for the people of Altengosta. So we thought of having a main section, a center section made with an old cherry picking
boxes that are made from pine that are aged, so they have this darker color that contrasts as well with the structure that is made from, of course, newer pine. And we created some spaces for sitting. So as you can see here, to really absorb the main how can I say this paisagem, the landscape. And as I was saying before, we try to experiment and try to have new uses for this. So you can see all the baskets here on the panels. We, instead of using the baskets as their main purpose of carrying object stuff, we thought of them as a filter, transparency, and creating some type of patterns on the ground. In this photo, it was late on the day, so it's not really possible. But you can see the light poking through the baskets and then creating a little environment on this part of the piece. I don't know. Let me just. Okay. So.
On the outside appearances, just like these different volumes created from the different forms that each basket has, because at the end, each basket is different from one another. Every basket is a unique piece because of the characteristics of the craft itself. So just, I think to finish our presentation, this is trying to enhance and express and show, to make evident the plasticity of the uniqueness of each object, as well as using it as a filter of light and shadow, creating compositions and organizing the landscape and the place to be inhabited and appropriated by all the locals of Congosta. If you want to,
I think it's all.
Thank you.
Hello. Thanks so much for the invitation to be here today. My name is Emma Conley, and I am a member of the Center for Genomic Gastronomy. The center, I'll explain a little bit just about the center and talk really briefly about a few projects, but hopefully we can continue the conversation at the end, and we can share more ideas and projects at that point. So the Center for Genomic Gastronomy is an artist-led think tank that examines the biotechnologies and biodiversity of human food systems. And so we have a mission, which is to map food controversies, prototype alternative culinary futures, and imagine a more just, biodiverse, and beautiful food system. And the way that we describe what genomic gastronomy as a concept is by looking at both of these words. So genomic refers to an organism's genes and all the interactions between those genes and the environment. And then gastronomy, we say, is the art of choosing, cooking, and eating good food. So genomic gastronomy is the study of organisms and environments manipulated by human food cultures. So how do the actions and choices that we make as humans begin to reform and reshape our food systems and environments? So the center was started by Zach Denfeld and Kat Kramer in 2010, but we do a lot of different projects with lots of different areas of expertise. And to accomplish that, we work with lots and lots of different collaborators. So sometimes we'll work with chefs, sometimes hackers, sometimes journalists, food producers, agriculturalists, scientists, yeah, you name it. And we'll draw a kind of group of experts together, given a different, whatever the kind of idea or concept or research area is. So we're always working with lots of different people. And then the work that we do, these kind of research concepts are shared and disseminated in a lot of different ways. So we make publications. One, for example, is this one, Food Freaking, which looks at exploits, experiments, explorations into the ways that humans manipulate food systems. So it's really looking at the space of technology, open culture, and food. We also make exhibitions. So sometimes we'll curate an entire exhibition, or sometimes we'll just make a single installation in a larger exhibition. And so, for example, here we have a piece called New National Dish. This piece usually consists of 4 stories, 4 flags, and 4 recipes that basically outline a scenario plan for that imagines different new national dishes, taking into account the changes that are being caused and will be caused by climate change. And so those changes could be environmental changes, but also social or economic. And so we kind of scenario plan and imagine out what some different directions for a national dish could be. We also make recipes and meals. So these can be quite literal recipe, or they can be a little bit more spectacular or imaginative. On the far right here, we have a project called To Flavor Our Tears. This is a project that basically imagines an experimental restaurant where the human body is put back into the food chain as a source of nutrients for other species. So this image you see here is from a recipe for an anthro-aquaponics system where the human puts their feet into the fish tank, the fish eat the dead skin cells off the bottom of the feet, the fish excrete into the water, giving nutrients to a plant growing system, and humans or other species can then eat some of the plants that are growing in the system. So it's putting the human back in the system and closing the loop. And we also do labs and workshops. So these can take lots of different forms. But here, for example, we have a project called Loki Food Lab, which it basically is a traveling food cart for prototyping bioregional food systems. When a visitor comes to this food cart, they don't select from a list of food items on the menu, but they select from a list of values for how they want their food system to be. And from 3 values that they select, things like, I want my food system to be efficient or wild or protein rich. They can choose whatever 3 they want. The algorithm generates a snack, a bite-sized snack that's a taste of this future, all with ingredients from the local bioregion. And a bioregion is a kind of different way of thinking of how we break up the world. It's instead of being broken up by political boundaries, a bioregion breaks up land based on ecological boundaries. So things like watershed or species or climate. And so over the years, we've been creating a lot of these kind of food carts like Loki Food Lab that really are more like a kind of fleet of vehicles that help citizens kind of, or just people in general, interact with different food systems. And so these vehicles kind of frame and work as a stage set for organizing and reassembling different organisms and ingredients. And we've been talking about these a lot as kind of interfaces. So we basically, as a studio, are creating these interfaces for humans to engage with and interact with and ask questions around their food systems. So I think I will leave it at that at this point. There's a lot to talk about in terms of working with living material, and as food is often living maybe before we start eating it. But there's also this question of working with microorganisms and understanding the kind of microbial world of our food. So I'm excited to, continue the conversation. Thank you.
I'd like to ask at first, because you finished right now. Can you hear me? Okay, so the work of the CGG is very elaborated, right? And I was just asking myself, how do you reach out to the crowd, like the masses, the people?
So I think actually taking that Loki Food Lab project, the one about bioregional cuisine, is a great example because we'll often have an idea and then we do lots of different iterations. And so we've been working on that project in different versions since 2014. And the first one was literally, we had a little box stand on the street at different street fairs in the US and Portland, Oregon. And we were just running it as an artwork that kind of slotted in next to other food vendors or artisans. And so it was in these spaces where people were already coming through, and everything, the food is free, the interaction is free, so it's easy to get people to want to participate when you offer them free food. But then just to elaborate, we've also done that project for a longer, maybe 6-month period of time in larger institutions like museums.
Can't you hear me? Okay.
Okay, I can hear again. Sorry, it dropped out for a second.
No, I just mentioned that you would get me with free food as well. Definitely. So thanks to Fernando, Joao, and Diego. How could you create a shared atmosphere with your artisans? How was that possible?
It was very good at the end. We managed to develop a very strong and close relation with them. The first approach was simply knocking on the door. Hey, we are looking for. I know we were with the people of the municipality. Yeah. So there was this kind of introduction with an intermediary that was a municipality. But then we were just simply autonomous on knocking on the door every now and then. We were constantly late on the appointments that we made with Antonio Nunes. So at the first we were just this undisciplined young fellows that wouldn't respect any hours. But eventually we ended up doing very, very well. We even helped, for example, in the small garden, cutting some herbs, some
wild vineyards.
Yeah.
They called us their grandsons.
So it was
Yeah.
it was quite intense. Even in the end, our artisan, Nunes, he offered us a cutelo labrado, one of his tools, one of his artifacts. Yeah. So it was because we were interested in all the process, especially for me, where I can get the same tools as they use. So I had to go to a blacksmith, find a way to do something, and in the end, the blacksmith did something that is not really close to the object. So when I showed this to Tonunes, to the artisan, he was like, "No, I will get you one that is really what you need to do the work." And it was really special for us to be there with Tonunes, with Maria de Lourdes, his wife, because we really felt like being part of that house, of their daily routines, and they really liked us. I don't know. It was quite intense. It was a really intense month. So
it was particularly interesting that we could, because it was not quite normal. We noticed that it's not quite normal that the focus would also be on Maria de Lourdes. Normally she's on the back, no one ever asks her anything. from the municipality, for example, is always Antonio, Antonio, Antonio. But right from the beginning, we started to call her by her name, asking her questions. We noticed that she herself carries a strong baggage of knowledge. For also, she's also an artisan, just like Antonio.
Yeah.
No, she does this very small, tiny, and sweet mini baskets from the leftovers of the main work of the basketry, and so that's also an important particularity of the relation that we managed to develop and gain with our fellow artisans.
Thanks. I really want to extend this Q&A round, but I need to swap to Nancy now. And I would like to know what methodology do you follow to investigate the relationships between design, human and non-human actors?
So yeah, so there is obviously this kind of relationship that we can maybe frame it as bioethics. I would just say the idea that we are really giving visibility to this invisible, world that they can really gain this voice, and it's very much about this collaboration between it is really at a shift, in design towards non-centered, design, non-human centered approach in design. So that's something that we really value and we push for. That that humans are not really in control, and we are not really in control in our work. I mean, it's always very emergent, so we embrace that emergency. We work with this unpredictability in terms of many things go wrong when and it's very unpredictable. I mean, there's a high degree of things that we can't control to do with the growth of the living systems. I mean, there is a lot of conditions. There is a completely different way of working in a lab kind of environment that traditionally we are not used to as designers, and there is always this lack of control, I think, that designers are used to, that we think it's fascinating to work in this different way. The fact that we are really giving space for living systems to take over in a way in terms of design process and making. So yeah, it's a great question that we are still trying to find out more about, to be honest. And how to calibrate our design practices, calibrate workflows, calibrate working spaces. I mean, calibrate this knowledge that me as a designer really don't know. I mean, this integration between science and biology is something that we are all learning. It's a different language, it's a different way of working. It's time-based, it takes a long time for things to grow. There's a lot of unpredictability in terms of contamination. Sometimes things happen, we don't really know why they're not growing, why this is not happening. So it's a combination between, allowing for this way of working to be more of I think it's a way of thinking in a different way, shifting design processes, and these hybrid kind of modes between biological systems and biofabrication, digital fabrication, that we are of course, we are designers. We like to have control. It's part of the process, but it's about calibrating the practices, I guess. Calibration, constant calibration, iteration, like in any other tool, I guess, it's like any other tool, like the basket weaving, I guess, or any technique. So it's all about technique in the end, I guess, tools and techniques, biotechnology techniques. But yeah, great question. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues and controversies around bioethics, the decision between keeping living systems alive, for example, that we try to do Yeah, but you know, not being exploiting the living system in a way, you know. So we always say collaboration, but then in the end we make decisions. Of course, we make decisions. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a great answer. And I'm very happy that everything is going on, because all of you and all the processes are still going on. I'm very excited to see what's going on in the next years. So we will have a 10 minutes break now. And I would like to thank you one more time for being here and showing us your work.
Thank you.